you. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Commissioner Pitchford. Hi, everybody. Hello. Hello back here. I'm so sorry to have my back towards you. Hello, of course. All right. Hello, everyone. Just to make sure, hello. I apologize in advance for, can you hear me back there? We had a problem with this in Lansing, and I said if people are going to sit behind me, it's already bad enough to have my back to them, but if they can't hear me, then it's a disaster. So, okay, I'm glad I can be heard. Thank you for coming. Thank you for making my welcome to Benton Harbor, St. Joe's area so nice. I have been your senator for about 7 months now, and I'm glad to be down here. We're spending the day here tomorrow. So thank you for giving me a nice welcome. I do want to thank our Boys and Girls Club and just tell you the reason we are here tonight in this space is because those ladies came to Washington to lobby me for funding that's being cut or under threat of being cut by President Trump, particularly for the Boys and Girls Club. And they were in my office in Washington, D.C. We were in our conference room, and they were lobbying me as we teach young people to do. They were saying, like, we really need this. They were pushing me. And they said, yeah, it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And they said, careful, Chokwe, don't fall off the stage, man. They said, we heard that you're looking for a venue in Benton Harbor. You know, we heard someone came by our center. Like, you got to have it in our center. You got to have it in our center. And I said, well, for gosh sakes, okay, let's have it in the center. So that is why we are here, because these young people stood up and said something and pushed. So, and their leader over there, Tess, is, excuse my language, a total badass, and we should all appreciate her bringing young people, so young, to lobby. Okay, so just to make sure you're in the right room, I'm Elissa Slotkin. I've been your senator since January, and what I thought I would do tonight, because I want to get to Q&A, is give you, number one, a quick sort of update, scene setter on what's happening in Washington, straight from a horse's mouth. I flew in yesterday to Grand Rapids, and we are now home for next 20 days in August. So I'm just fresh out of Washington. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be home and to be out of there. And then I want to talk about what I put forward in the past month and a half, 2 months now, which is some sort of plan to play some offense and not just defense when it comes to Donald Trump. I feel strongly about that. Okay, so as you heard Representative Andrews talk about, the big, beautiful bill was signed into law on July 4th. We voted on it in the couple of days before July 4th. Many of my peers who, we were on the Senate floor all night. Many of them voted for that bill while it was still being written. They never actually read the entire document. And they were pressured and forced and obliged President Trump and voted for that bill. I want to go through very quickly because Joey alluded to it, but I want to make sure people understand what this means for every single person in this room and every single person out there watching, okay? Number one, every single person here, every single Michigander, and every American is either at risk of losing their health insurance or having the price of your insurance go up. Every single person. And I can confirm that without a shadow of a doubt because I was touring this morning Corewell Health up in Grand Rapids, right? I was doing a visit there. And they're opening their books. They're showing you their spreadsheets of what is going to happen to their emergency room, to their birth and delivery center, to their children's pediatric cancer unit, right? Because of the loss of two big things, actually three big things. One, the Medicaid cuts that are coming, right, in the next year and a half. The major changes that sort of allocate money differently to hospitals, which mean that our hospitals are losing $6 billion over the next 10 years in the state of Michigan alone. They're losing because the ACA or Obamacare subsidies starting this November are going away for people who are not rich, right? People, for instance, a family of 4 making $129,000 in Benton Harbor, 2 kids, they are now going to lose their subsidies for their health insurance. They're going to get notice this November that their bill will go up for their insurance next year by $5,500. Okay? A couple living in St. Joe's, 2 60-year-olds, empty nesters, who make $82,000 a year, are going to be told that their insurance will go up by $13,000 next year. Now, what happens when you're making $82,000 a year and your insurance goes up by $13,000? Well, some people say, I can't pay that. I'm just not going to have insurance. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to go without. So between the Medicaid cuts and the ACA cuts, our hospitals are looking at a real phenomenon of people walking into their ERs with no insurance, right? People still have heart attacks. People still have car accidents. And so what does a hospital do when there's a bunch of people who aren't insured, right? And they walk through their doors. They got to make ends meet. They want to keep their unit, their pediatric cancer unit open. They will openly tell you, they're now saying publicly, that we are just going to have to charge people with employer-provided health insurance more money, right? They've put it out publicly. They said today that their healthcare program, their insurance that they sponsor, will go up by about 13% this next January. Every single person here is going to get notice of some major increase, to our health insurance, maybe 10% increase. It may be a 17% increase, but it is coming. And when you get that letter, when it arrives in your postbox, I want you to understand that that increase to your private insurance is because of the cuts that Donald Trump has decided to make just in the past month here. Okay? There is a cause and effect. And to me, healthcare is extremely personal, right? I ran because my mom went almost 6 years without health insurance. She had a pre-existing condition, couldn't afford it, and then was diagnosed through an ER having ovarian cancer, stage 4 ovarian cancer. So this issue is deeply, deeply personal to me. And whatever he says, whatever he tries to make people believe, he is continuing this decades-long goal of cutting people's insurance, of saying that we should live in a society where you don't necessarily have access to health care, even though we're the most powerful country in the world. So that is the biggest impact in my mind from... Ooh, that's exciting. I don't know. Some air was moving through the system here. So healthcare is the number one. Number two, there is no way around it. Starting this September, in a month plus, there will be changes to food stamps, to bridge cards, for those who know the bridge cards. Work requirements will now extend from anyone 18 to 64 years old and parents who have children that are 14 and up. You will have to prove every month that you requalify. Now, they're doing this, instead of just saying we're going to kick people off, they are trying to say, well, we're not kicking anyone off. You just have to do all these additional things every single month and prove it every single month, and people fall off because, they get busy, they get overwhelmed, they don't know the right paperwork. And then number three, the third big takeaway from that bill, which will have a dramatic impact, again, on costs for everyone in this room, is that the president really went after major solar and wind projects throughout the country, of which Michigan has a whole bunch that we've invested in. He decided that even though we need more energy as a country in general, we're all using more power than we ever did before, right? With these things and so much else. And artificial intelligence it uses even more energy than we usually do. right? So even though our energy diet is expanding, he wants to cut off certain types of energy because he's decided they're woke. He's decided that they're not enough oil and gas for him. There's something different. So you should hear the conversations I'm having in places like the UP, where they come up to me and they're like, well, we've got a wind project up here, but we're all conservatives. We're Republicans. We're not woke. I'm like, well, this is the point, is that he is making this ridiculous political association when we as Michiganders just need more energy and more clean energy. So a lot of those incentives for those projects are going away, and a lot of the solar and wind companies are turning to themselves and saying, should we continue our project? Is it worth it? Can we keep doing this? So those are the three big takeaways. Now, if we don't have those solar and wind projects coming on, and we have increasing demand for energy, what do you think happens? Price goes up, right? And is there anyone in Michigan who thinks they're paying too little for their energy bills, right? So again, for Donald Trump, whose central thesis, his central theme when he ran in November was he was going to lower your costs. In every single category, he is not lowering your costs, he is raising your costs. And what I'd ask you to do is just keep book on your own budget. You don't have to understand Washington and all the policy things going on in Washington. It is complex, but you know your own family budget. You know how much you save every month. You know how much your health care is, your utilities, your mortgage, or your rent. You keep book on yourself, and you have that honest conversation with yourself and with your neighbors about what he has done for costs. And you throw in a few tariffs, right? And you're having a very different conversation. He is costing you money. Now, I've been in Washington, as I said, 6-7 months as your senator. For some reason, I just had a birthday. I just turned 49, but I am the youngest Democratic woman in the U.S. Senate, which is absurd. Absurd. I tell people I am not young. I am young for the Senate. And they literally are like, hey, kid, come on in here. And, you know, I'm a former CIA officer. And when I was like a baby CIA officer, I was serving in Iraq. I did 3 tours alongside the military in Iraq. And some of the senators I serve with would come for a visit to Iraq. And I'd be the baby CIA analyst briefing them. And 20 years later, I am serving with them. They're still there, right? Now they pay more attention to me than they did when I was over there in Iraq. But I have to say that the divisions in that room among Democrats are no longer progressive Democrat versus moderate Democrat, right? That's the debate we've been having, you know, basically since 2016. That's like a very 2016, 2017 debate. The debate now among Democrats is, how do you answer the following question? Is Donald Trump an existential threat to democracy in his second term? Or is Donald Trump's second term, oh, I have a fly on me. Is Donald Trump's second term bad, but like his first term, survivable if we just wait it out, right? And I just want you to know from your senator, as someone who sits in that room on your behalf, I am in camp number 1. He is an existential threat to democracy. And what do you do as a national security person when something's a threat? You make a plan, right? I was in the Pentagon. You know, if you're sitting in Baghdad, if something is a threat to you, you don't just watch it. You don't just let it fester and get worse. You formulate a plan to counter it. So what I did a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, whatever it was, is I just sat down, and the same way that I did, you know, I was given the opportunity to give the response to the State of the Union, right? I was completely shocked, was very surprised. And I was given 6 days notice. So I decamped to my family farm in Holly, Michigan, with a few friends and advisors, and we wrote the response to the State of the Union in that time. My whole goal was just to not be a Saturday Night Live skit. That was my whole goal, and we achieved that goal. But it gave me some belief that if I sat down and thought through an economic war plan, that we could at least put out something that would allow us to go on offense and not just constantly play defense with Donald Trump, which is what we do a lot of, right? Is that. So very briefly, and then I want to open it up to however questions, whatever direction you want to go in. I believe that a huge reason that we find ourselves in this moment in history, that we have found ourselves, and especially as Michiganders, living in a world where, we can't have a conversation with our neighbors about politics without it getting completely toxic and nasty. Some of us, know what it's like to have an uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinner where you just sort of understand that you can't talk about How many in the room have had an uncomfortable family meal in the past few years? Yeah, it's uncomfortable, right? Many of them, right? So why is it that we find ourselves in this moment? It never used to be so nasty, politics, right? My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat. I never remember they fought about other things. And in Michigan, we could fight over things like Michigan versus Michigan State more than we could about politics in the 80s or whatever. But now it's become so toxic. Why? My theory of the case is that we are at this moment in our history because for 30 years, the middle class has been shrinking in America. The power and the wealth that the middle class holds in this country, which was so powerful after World War II, is shrinking. And when people feel like they can't provide for their families, like they can't get into the middle class or stay in the middle class, they feel shame. They feel anger, they feel humiliation, and they start looking for someone to blame. They look for someone who doesn't look like them, doesn't sound like them, doesn't pray like them. And to me, this is, I live in Holly. And Holly, Trump won both times there, or 3 times there actually. I've never won my town. I've never won my precinct. I've never won my neighbors, right? I live on a dirt road. You all know what I'm talking about in this part of the state, right? And so what I see in places across the state are places where, maybe dad was in the middle class, but the son has fallen out. Granddad could have the fishing cabin up north, but the grandson can't afford to have the fishing cabin or take the kids up north. There is a sense of grievance and anger, and people look around for someone to blame. And they are being fed from the top by people telling them that it's okay to treat other people as the enemy. It's okay to use divisions between us as a tool, right? So what do? Because this place, as a multiracial, multi-ethnic experiment in democracy, if we are not a place where anyone from anywhere can get into the middle class, we're in trouble. We're in trouble as a state, as a country, in real trouble. So what do we do? Well, first of all, we got to acknowledge that is the essential problem in America. We have a lot of problems, don't get me wrong, but to me, this is the one that is going to be my life's work because my state invented the middle class, right? We invented this concept that you could work on the line at an auto plant and afford the car you were building. That is our thing. We taught the world that you could do that. And so we're not going to give up on the middle class, but it does mean we need to radically change how we think about jobs, good jobs, one job, jobs with dignity, with benefits, not 12 jobs pieced together with no benefits. We need to understand that means we got to train our young people for the economy of the future. Artificial intelligence, it may seem far away, it is not. Okay, artificial intelligence is going to change our economy more than the internet did, which is crazy to think about, but it is coming. It is upon us, and we need our young people to have the training to meet the needs of that new world. Now, we're already seeing losses of jobs in places like Silicon Valley, and jobs of being like a first round accountant. Those jobs are going away. And we may not be the first ones to lose those jobs, but we need to be prepared for the future. We need to understand that half of all Americans work for small businesses, and we can't be scared of supporting our small businesses. We want our businesses to succeed, and we need to make sure we have a regulatory environment that does that. We need to once and for all say that our supply chains need to be secure. We cannot be dependent on places like China for us to figure out how to build a car, right? We cannot do that. And then right on down the line, we have to attack those things that are most commonly thought of as the American dream. We need to make sure those things are real. So think about buying a house. We have a housing emergency going on right now. We are short 4 million units of housing across the country, okay? So if you figure out why a young family can't afford their first home, we do not have enough housing. We have basically stopped really building single-family homes that middle-class people can afford, right? And that does not work if we want people to achieve the American dream. We need, we talked about education. Let me say something very openly. We need an immigration system that works for us, for our economy, and for the immigrants wanting a better life. We need an immigration system. And if we want to grow as a state, we need to acknowledge we're getting older, right? Immigrants drive innovation, entrepreneurial activity. It is the story of most Americans. And so we need a system that actually works so legal, vetted immigrants can come work here and thrive. That's what we need, not what we're doing now. So we laid out in kind of chapter and verse what we need to do. And some of it is a little different, right? I mean, to me, we have to acknowledge that like our cell phones, this is not going to be popular with these three. I'm one of the first Democrats to say we need to ban cell phones in classrooms for K through 12 schools. And we need to see what's going on with our kids, right? We need to see the anxiety levels are through the roof. The mental health issues are through the roof. Are we just going to sit by and watch that happen, or are we going to tackle that problem? So to me, all of these things are about having something that we believe in instead of just pointing at Donald Trump and saying, no, he's bad, he's wrong. Yes, he is. But you can't win a game by playing defense only. You have to put out something that shows you're playing offense. Now, lastly, I will just say, just to close out on where we go from here in the immediate term, I will go back to Washington in first couple of days of September, and we have a very important inflection moment coming on September 30th. The government is funded only through September 30th, runs out of money. So that means Democrats and Republicans will have to negotiate together to pass another budget. And those negotiations have been tough, right? But they will need 7 Democratic votes. I have already been clear, particularly given the role of healthcare, that I will not be able to support their bill unless they do something to restore some of the cuts that they passed. That means the Medicaid cuts, reversing those. That means the ACA cuts, reversing those. And the third pillar of that stool, or the third leg of that stool, is we must restore funding in science and basic medical research. We have cuts to places like the National Institutes of Health, the Cancer Institute, by 40, 50, and 60%. So can you imagine that I was walking around Corewell Health this morning? They have an incredible children's pediatric cancer unit. The most heartbreaking little faces waving out at you from their rooms. They can't come out because there's too much risk of infection. Okay? And they're sitting there briefing me, and they're so excited, the doctors, telling me about how there's a new drug to treat pediatric leukemia. and it's changing the lives of their patients. And now, if you get this drug, 90% chance that you will recover from childhood leukemia. Just gives me chills just thinking about it, right? And they list the name of the drug. I can't remember the name of this new wonder drug. And all I'm thinking in my head is, you get to that drug because of research dollars that we invest in as a society. And if we want that next wonder drug, we need to invest. So that is the next inflection point. End of September, we're going to have a real fight on our hands. And I just want you to know that for me, for my vote, for my willingness to join in that negotiation, you're going to have to restore something of Americans' health care in order to get me back on that team, because it just does not, I will not abide the loss of health care in the most powerful nation in the world for my constituents. So, all right, I'm going to leave it there. I know we have a bunch of Q&A. Chokwe is ready. Happy to take your questions. Thank you for being engaged citizens, and looking forward to your questions. Go ahead.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I want to say thank you again for allowing me to moderate this Economic War Plan Town Hall. I am going to do it justice by moving my chair up so I do not fall off the stage. So the way this is going to work, everyone, I'm going to pull some questions out of this bowl, and then staff, I'm going to call your name out of the individual. Staff, you can see them putting their hands up. They're going to come over with a microphone, and actually, you're going to read your question off to the senator. So I want to start because there's a special group right over here that has a question with the Boys and Girls Club that we really want to have them ask the senator. So please.
Hi, we're glad you came to visit us, and I'm Jaden Tackett.
I'm Lovely.
I'm Sincere.
And we wanted to know, following up from our meeting in D.C., what specific policies and programs will you support to protect the youth in Michigan?
Great question. Okay, so I told you they came lobbying. They're keeping the heat. They're keeping the heat on. So right now, we, as you know, are playing major defense on profound cuts across the board to programs, from environmental programs to youth programs, education, immigration-related programs, just across the board, significant cuts. But this end of September deadline is an important moment for you all as well, for what's going to be in that budget. Trump has proposed major cuts to programs you care about. And the question is, what kind of fight are we going to have to push back on some of those things? What you did is the exact right thing, lobbying every level of government, Democrat and Republican. You can't just come to Democratic offices, right? You got to come to everybody's offices and explain what happens to young people when these programs go away. This is exactly what you all did. So for me, we are pushing to restore particularly funding around education, after-school programs, job training programs. If people know a program called Job Corps, it got cut. It's exactly for people your age to learn how to enter the job force. All of those programs are a major asset for the state of Michigan, and you can count on me to be pushing for full funding for those programs. So I have you. I had you before, I have you again.
Thank you so much for that question. All right, I'm going to read off two names here, so if you hear your name, please stand up. We've got Dean S. and Mark Patridge, both with questions for the senator.
There's someone, oh, of course, he's on the top row.
That's Dean.
Oh, and this gentleman here, up front. Jeremy, over here.
I'm to start. Oh, gosh. It's Partridge, Mark Partridge. And my question is, all right, I wrote it this way. How do we get the public to understand that Trump's tariffs are a tax on ordinary Americans, and this is the largest tax increase in modern history, resulting in the largest transfer of money from the poor to rich people?
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about tariffs. Let's talk about tariffs. So we are the state of Michigan. Manufacturing, agriculture. Those are some of our primary industries. That means we are being disproportionately hit by these tariffs or even threat of tariffs. So President Trump announced his Liberation Day tariffs. He announced all kinds of tariffs on all kinds of countries, and he created basically the world's most intense marketplace at the White House, where every country, every industry comes hat in hand trying to make a deal with him. Now, he said he wanted 90 deals in 90 days. He got one deal in 90 days. So he extended the deadline. He's thrown some tariffs here. He's held them back on other places. It gets very confusing. What you, I think, need to know is that the price of goods and services, but particularly goods for like back to school, clothing, school supplies, plastics, those are things where we're already seeing significant increases. We know we're seeing it on things like aluminum and construction materials, farming materials. I came from visiting a farm today, and they're talking about tariffs. You're right that people don't understand that a tariff is them having to pay more. I think the school supplies might be changing some people. I think a lot of people are talking about, well, wait a minute, I just went to buy some clothes for my kid and it was double what I spent last year. And you can believe that Christmas will be a very difficult time. Last year, a Tonka truck was $30 for your child. This year, it'll be probably closer to $45, depending on what you're buying. And I think on top of the consumer feeling that price increase, the rationality behind these tariffs just does not make sense. We currently have more tariffs on Canada than we do on China, okay? And we as Michiganders know, I mean, the Canadians, we can have issues with them from time to time, but you know, this is a partner. Our supply chains are woven in with them. So I even have Republican colleagues who are proposing bills saying that we need to send all Americans relief checks from tariffs to say, here's a $500 check because we know you're paying more because of tariffs. Just don't have an insane tariff policy and you won't have to send another check to people, right? So the policy, and again, if you want to get me on tariffs with China and we can have a real conversation. I'm not against all tariffs, but the way he's going about it is sloppy and chaotic and creating an environment where no industry, including local places like Whirlpool, how could you possibly plan and make your budget for next year when you don't know what's going to happen? So, yes, we can talk about policy papers and how we get people to understand. To me, this is why I tell people to keep book on what you pay on things, because nothing is going to be more convincing than your own wallet, your own family budget. And I feel very firmly, particularly as we head into the fall, people are going to feel those tariffs, unfortunately. Okay.
Good evening, Senator. My question is, what legislation can be introduced that will help us with undecideds in the midterms or any other activities that will help us?
Yeah. So we all know in 2026 we'll have midterm elections, and a lot of times when you have dissatisfaction with the president, people vote a different way in the midterms, right? That's a pretty important. I got elected in 2018, so the first midterm after President Trump was elected. And to me, you know, I think it's pretty easy to see the message that Americans are sending their elected leaders across the board, whether it was the election in November or things like the election we just had in New York City for mayor. The two messages are this: cost of living and the inability to save and lead a stable life financially is the number one issue that's still plaguing America. There's lots of conversations on the internet. There's lots of online conversations about things that are important, but still across the board, Americans from New York to Michigan want more money in their pocket so they can save. And then number two, the message they want, especially from that last election, is they want a new generation of leaders, right? They want something new. They want a new face. And in fact, they're willing to take someone new that they may not know a ton about rather than the kind of warmed over leftovers, right? And so I think, to me, that signal couldn't be sent any clearer. So then if it's being sent by the American public, you must respond by answering that call. So to me, that's why we're sitting here talking about an economic war plan and not like a different other issue. And it's why even at 49, people are happy to call me, quote, young, because they just want some different voices in the mix. And so that to me is the message for 2026 and beyond. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right, we've got 2 more questions queued up here. One from Julie Bender. Julie. You'll take Julie. And then from Peter Carey. Peter.
Oh, there he is. Okay. I was like, I can't imagine someone wrote a question and then took off.
You want to go first?
Okay, sure. Hi. I'm Julie Bender. I'm a retired middle school teacher for 38 years. And
Right.
my question, you have validated so many of the questions I had because I saw so many students in the last, say, 10 years that haven't been able to make it. They're hardworking. They studied hard. They were conscientious. They came from families that really supported them, and they're living with their families, and they haven't been able to get ahead. And so my question is, how do you have plans for empowering 20 to 40-year-olds in politics?
Yeah, great question. And can we all thank her for being a middle school teacher her whole life? Oh my gosh. I don't know about you, but you couldn't pay me to go back to middle school right now. I would rather go back to Washington and spend every day there than go back to middle school. Okay, so this is why I think the economic issue is the issue of our time, because it unites, middle-aged folks who are looking at their savings being eaten up with that 21-year-old college graduate who is saying, hey, I did what I was supposed to do, but I can't even afford to rent an apartment and live on my own, right? It's the uniting issue among generations and even among different kind of economic classes of people in this country. And I think the thing that I feel very passionate about is there are policies that we can push, including from Washington, that would help reset on some of the things that have gotten out of control. So for instance, look, Michigan is a place where we have a lot of family companies, long-standing companies. But if you are a major corporation and you do not pay your employees a living wage such that they have to be on food stamps or Medicaid, you should not qualify for a single tax incentive. Not a single one, right? I mean, why do I have to pay twice? That would mean literally I'm subsidizing their employees to get health care and to get food, and then I'm giving them a tax benefit that comes from taxpayer dollars. That's double dipping. I'm not going to do that, right? So there's things like that, but there's also, I think, a way. I was, like I said, my age, 49. I was raised on the American dream. I think many of us, we really internalized it. I think of it as almost a birthright to being an American. That's what we invented, this place you could be anyone. And you didn't have to be an aristocracy, a king or a queen. And I think we need, the youngest generation they didn't get raised on it that way, and they don't believe it anymore. And it is gut-wrenching. So this is why we need to bring more of them into elected politics and into the conversation. And let's be honest, even here tonight, right? It is a very hard thing to bring our young people into the conversation because they're disillusioned. They feel left out. They feel like these people don't represent me. And to me, the way that you attract that different generation is by bringing some of those young people into elected office. I mean, I can do so much, but the power that someone like Chokwe has of getting on stage, or Joey, wherever Joey went, and Joey Andrews, right? Like the power that they have for the young people to say like, oh, it's not just old fuddy-duddies who are in elected office. They're dynamic, interesting people who look like me, sound like me, come from places like me. So recruitment of candidates, if you know a young person who's pissed and mad and engaged, you should be asking them year after year to run for office. I know it's hard, but ask them and get them engaged. Okay, Peter.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for your service, and thank you for coming here.
Thank you.
My question is, what qualities did you see in Kristi Noem that led you to confirm her, and how do you feel about it now?
Yeah, I know you. I just have to say you have the most incredible radio voice. I know it is a serious question, but I just want to tell you, I don't know if you're from that field, but you should be if you're not. So look, I am on the Homeland Security Committee, and Kristi Noem came in front of our committee for confirmation. Senator Peters, my fellow Michigan senator, is the ranking member. He's the highest ranking Democrat on that committee. Both of us voted for her. And here's why. One major reason. We are a border state, and we're about to open the biggest international crossing in the United States of America, the Gordie Howe Bridge. You'll be able to drive from Montreal to Miami without stopping for a streetlight. The Canadians paid for the whole thing, just so we're all clear, in case anyone starts getting even more mad at the Canadians from the White House. And I desperately need the staffing, the resources for us to open that bridge this fall. So that was number one. Number two, I represent the state of Michigan, which, while this room may have strong views, there is a diversity of views across our state. And one of the things that I feel is my mandate is to try, whenever possible, to work across the aisle. I did it with Fred Upton, who was your representative here for many years. I called him when I was coming down here. He's out of town. But we didn't agree on everything. But I believe in trying. Now, since her confirmation, and in general, if I can be frank, Thomas Holmgren, who runs border policy largely from the White House, they have been a disaster. They have been un-American. They have done things that I have heard this morning in Grand Rapids from our Latino Chamber of Commerce that make you feel you are in an autocratic nation, right? And even some of the most ardent Trump voters in our state will pull me aside and say, I don't like this grabbing people off the street. I don't like this people dressed in all black, no insignia, no notice that they're law enforcement, pulling people and masks, pulling people off the street. That's too much, right? So it is one of the most difficult things I have to do as a senator from a swing state, from a complicated state, is make those kind of calls. But you better believe that in my role as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, including last week on Thursday, we are doing everything we can to help, the individuals who call my office every day saying, someone's was taken, their visa was expired, they did this, they did, we don't know where they are, families are separated. Every day my team is doing that casework, and you should call us if you have someone who is in that position. And then number two, trying to use the weight of law and the courts to push back on what this administration is trying to do in our name. And that is my commitment to you, despite the fact that I had to make a difficult decision and for my state in order to try and get something accomplished with them. It was controversial, I know, but that is the answer to the question. You bet. And please go into radio full time. Okay, Chokwe.
All right. We've got two more questions. First one from Mary Partridge.
I think this is the spouse of, you guys you have the hot hand right now.
Last name Ellis. I cannot read the front. My cursive is terrible.
Last name Ellis? Give it to an older person. Give it to me. Okay. I'll read the cursive. Oh, okay. Okay, go ahead, Mary.
Let's see. I wrote two of these, so I'm trying to
Okay.
figure out which one it is. What is your, Mary Partridge from Sawyer, Michigan. What is your position on cryptocurrency or stable coins? I'm concerned that if it's backed by US dollars and there's a run on the bank, the taxpayers will have to bail out the banks.
Great question. Okay, cryptocurrency. So how many people know someone who's invested in cryptocurrency? Okay, a fair number. Yeah, there's some people being like, whoa, I don't know anybody who's done that. It's particularly young people are investing in cryptocurrency. And right now, it is keyed to the US dollar. Stablecoins are keyed to the US dollar. Which is good. We'd rather have it keyed to the dollar than keyed to the yen or another currency abroad. But it is a completely new area for us. It is a new concept. We have zero regulation on the books on cryptocurrencies. So you are not alone in fearing that our banks are, that someone could be invested, there could be a run on it. You're not alone. In the past, I want to say 6 weeks, we had a piece of legislation come forward to put some left and right limits on stable coins. Now, not every crypto is a stable coin. President Trump has invented his own cryptocurrency. It is not a stable coin, okay? But most reputable crypto outfits are stable coins. So we voted in, and I voted for, the first ever regulation on cryptocurrencies. It was controversial because of this exact reason and about 25 million other questions. But one of the changes that was made as the bill got amended through the weeks of the process was to make sure that you wouldn't have the complete destruction of the financial system if there happened to be something going crazy on stablecoins. And guess who insisted on that? The banks, right? The banks are like, what is this, right? What is all of this? Now, some people, colleagues of mine in the Senate, said, it's not a perfect bill, so I'm not going to vote for it, right? A lot of my Democratic colleagues did not vote for it. I think there was like 20 Democrats who voted for it. I voted for it for a whole bunch of reasons related to national security. And I just believe I'd rather have some regulation on these coins than none. And we can amend it and make it better, but I could not see voting against this bill because it wasn't perfect, because there's not a single perfect bill out there, right? Medicare took many rounds to get right. So I understand your concern. There are checks and balances in the final bill that was voted on to prevent the very thing you're talking about. But you're right to raise it because it is definitely a new and controversial area, for sure. Okay, Chokwe. Yeah? Oh, I'm sorry.
More.
Hi, Cindy Ellis from Sawyer, Michigan. And yeah, my neighbors actually.
Neighbors. My Lord, these people really have the hot hand over here. Everyone's,
We're pretty
if you want to get a
active.
question asked, then
Yeah, we're
just ask the
active.
partridges.
So many of us Democrats are feeling helpless, and like our elected representatives, besides you and Joe, you've gone radio silent on us. Where are they? And it kind of feels like there's been a bloodless coup. And many of us are sleepless at night, pacing, and we want to know, what can we do?
Yep. Okay, that's the right question. And it's making me think I got to visit Sawyer, Michigan, because it's a hotbed of activity. So this is the question, and it's why I started off by describing that the debate among Democrats is not progressive moderate. It is, do you see this president as an existential threat to democracy? Because if you see something as an existential threat, then you have to speak out constantly. Then you have to go hoarse. Then you have to be providing legislative ideas. You have to be moving constantly. And a lot of my colleagues just say, you know what, I've been around a long time. Just wait. All these things will reverberate on Trump, and people will come around. And I can't subscribe to that. So let's talk about what we can do. So I am a data nerd and a student of history, and I like to be effective, because I can yell and put that on the internet all day long. but I want to actually change things. So let's look at what was the most effective pushback we did during the first Trump administration. What is the thing that Trump ran on, obsessed about, focused on, and then we thwarted him, we stopped him from doing his number one goal? The ACA and Obamacare. He was obsessed with repealing Obamacare. He ran on it. He cut TV ads on it. When he first came in his first year, he was obsessed with it. Actually, the House of Representatives under his party voted to repeal Obamacare. And why did it get killed in the Senate? Because John McCain came in and voted against it, right? But why did John McCain feel so confident that he could buck his party and vote to save Obamacare? Because the public had turned against what Trump was trying to do. The public said to themselves, wait a minute, you're going to take away my protection for people with pre-existing conditions? You're going to take away my kids being on my care until they're 26? You're going to take away affordable health care so that I'm going to go without again? No. And the public turned against it. And the man is a populist, right? He doesn't have a strong ideology. He does whatever the public wants. He changes with the wind. He can be for something and then against something in the same day. So that is what that model of turning the public on to what he is trying to do is the model. And it's why I'm talking again about healthcare, because the story he began in 2016 is the same story he is pursuing today in 2025. It is part of the same goal of saying, I just don't like that in the United States of America, we're going to help people get healthcare. He just doesn't like it. If you can't afford it, you shouldn't have it, and that's his view. And to me, it is the thing you can do is help educate your fellow neighbors on what is happening to their health care. That means posting something on social media. That means writing an op-ed for your local newspaper. That means going and helping to arrange a little teach-in or educational event. There are a million things we did in that time frame that, by the way, weren't told to you from the top down. People just organically did it in 2017 and 18 and 19. That's what I need from you today. I need you to help explain to people in real terms. And the way we're going to be able to do this is when people start getting their letters about rate increases. Take that letter, scratch out your address, right? So no personal information in there, and post that sucker online so that everyone knows that I am having to pay more because of what this man is choosing to do. And that education is what we need to turn the tide. It is public opinion, and Michigan is a swing state, so they really care what happens here. Public opinion here matters more than most states in the country. So education, 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 public is what I need if you want to join the fight. Okay?
Wow. So we have time for one more question here.
Partridges is going to get their second question picked.
This question is for Gus Winston.
Okay, right there. Great. Okay. Bringing us home. Peter's going to try and dive under. He's a veteran. He can go under a.
Just wanted to know if you think that the presidential pardon should be limited.
So, my feeling is that is a quirk of history that does not make sense in America for either party, for any reason, right? To me, it is just a strange thing that the President of the United States has a few extra chits in their pocket to give away. And while, of course, if someone was wrongly imprisoned or shouldn't be there, I don't wish them in jail. But right now, the president is of course having this conversation with this woman related to the Epstein files, right? Ghislaine Maxwell. She's been moved to a low security prison. That they are having conversations about a pardon. Now, they're having conversations in year 1 of his presidency, not the end of his presidency, which is what you typically see. But look, I thought it was controversial with President Biden, too. It was controversial with everyone that Obama or Clinton or Bush did. So to me, it's just this weird kind of literally get out of jail free card that I just think muddies the waters. And when you have a president who has a deep, deep problem with corruption, it just can be taken to such a dangerous degree that he's letting out pedophiles and criminals, violent people, because he's paying back favors to others. I just can't support that. So if we could get rid of it for everybody, I would be thrilled. Okay, I'm going to wrap it. Okay, thank you for coming out. Thank you for caring about your country and community. Just by being here, you're showing that you care. But I want to leave you on just a slightly optimistic note, okay? This is not the end. This is not the end. Do not give up the ship. This is the country that we love. People and generations before us have fought. Let's see. Is that better? Yeah. Generations have come before us and fought for this place. And they have fought against terrible odds. They have fought against dangerous, violent opposition. I am a female senator. I would not be here had there not been generations and 100 years of women fighting on my behalf before me. So don't for one moment give up that hope. We cannot. We owe it to our kids and our grandkids to fight when the chips are down and to do what we know how to do, right? The country, we love our country. We believe in our country and we want it to be better. But our country is ill right now. We are ill. And what do we do when we have a loved one who's ill? I know you all know what to do this. You care for them. You nurse them back to health. You figure out whatever you need to do to get them back to living life again. And that is what we are doing right now. That is our responsibility to ourselves, to our kids, and to our grandkids. So we cannot abide despair, and we cannot accept that while other generations stood against water hoses and dogs and years of disappointment, we get to give up now. So don't do it. Don't abide it from your friends and from your neighbors. And it's okay if every so often you need to go home, turn off the news, and watch trash television. It's okay. It's okay. Because whatever you need to do to refuel, whatever internet diet you need to take for a while so that you go to a lake and enjoy yourself and recharge, you do it. But you come back. You come back to the fight because we owe that to people we love and to the country we love. So don't give up the ship.
I never